before we begin, there's some important guidelines and general instructions for the meeting. Please silence your cell phones or electronic devices. During the meeting, all public participants will be placed on mute by the host. Public members will not be able to mute or unmute manually. Audio from members of the public will be unmuted once they are recognized to make a public comment. After each agenda item, the chair will announce public comment. The clerk will recognize any public attendees who have indicated they wish to speak. Before we get started, I want you to know that I'm going to apologize right off the get-go. I came straight out of the field here in Modesto, and I always feel like I have to have a decorum, but then I show up here and I feel like I'm at home. So in farm, although I'm dressed a little dirtier, but thank you for a little variance today, and next time I'll try and show up with at least a shirt on. So with that, we call the roll, please.
Good morning. Mr. Couch?
Here.
Ms. Escutia-Brayton? Ms. Lewis?
Here.
Mr. McCauley?
Here.
Mr. Mendez?
Here.
Dr. Pacheco-Warner?
Here.
Mr. Pereira?
Here.
Mr. Preciado?
Here.
Mr. Reyna? Mr. Rickman?
Here.
Mr. Robinson? Dr. Sheriffs?
Here.
Ms. Shucklian?
Here.
Ms. Nguyen? Mr. Chiesa?
I am here.
Through the chair, we have a quorum.
Perfect. If I could ask everyone to please stand, I'm going to ask Supervisor Pereira to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. So today we're going to have a public hearing, and there is no action today on the recommended budget. We'll go through this, and then there'll be an opportunity first for our board members to ask questions, but I also want to hear from the board members that served on the budget committee, how they felt, because they did a deep dive, and then we will go out to public comment. And with that, item 4, I'm going to turn it over to Samir. I'm assuming you're going to start this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I will present this item here with the team that will go through the budget. Thank you for the introduction there. And we're talking here today about the recommended budget for the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District for the new fiscal year period of July 1st, 2024 to June 30th, 2025, which is what our fiscal year consists of. And there is a process that the board has adopted and is also prescribed under state law that I want to just quickly summarize for you. Under board policy, the first step in reviewing the recommended budget with the board is through the ad hoc subcommittee that you mentioned. The ad hoc committee did meet and provided policy guidance and input into development of the budget. And I just wanted to express gratitude and a lot of appreciation from the staff for the time that they took to help with that. They met last month in April and consisted of Board Chair Supervisor Chiesa, who did take the time to join that meeting, Councilmember Lewis, Councilmember Reyna, Councilmember Nguyen, and Dr. Sheriff. So big thank you to all of you for your time. And after that subcommittee under state law in May, which is today's hearing, your board holds the first of 2 public hearings, with the first hearing, again, today's hearing being held today for the exclusive purpose of allowing the public an opportunity to make comments on the budget with no action, again, by your board at this meeting. This hearing must be separate, again, from the public hearing at which the district adopts the budget, which is scheduled for June, and under your board's policy is required to be by June. So every year we go through a detailed presentation to outline the district's recommended budget. We're going to go through that again today here. And in accordance with your board's guidance and direction, this presentation isn't just a set of figures and fiscal information. It's really a report on what we've done with the public funds that our board, the staff, are entrusted with over this past year. And then a real conversation about what we hope to accomplish in the coming year with the resources that are available to us, along with some of the challenges and opportunities that we see in the coming year. And so it is a very detailed presentation, so I thank you in advance for taking the time and thoroughly going through the district's budget. So I'm just going to go through the if you can call the presentation up to the screen. And I'll just wait I'll pause a moment here. And so just a quick reminder as well, the board, you all have the detailed presentation with you, hard copy, and the presentation is also available to the public. You can actually access that if you're online. You can actually follow along as well with the document that's posted along with the agenda. And so it is up on the screen, so if you could go next slide, please. So today's agenda is taking a look back at the last fiscal year that we're actually currently in the middle, at the tail end of that fiscal year, and seeing how things went this last year and what was accomplished again with the resources that we have. I'm going to lay out the guiding principles for the 2024-25 budget based on board direction and how we developed this budget. The outlook for the coming year in 2024-2025. The highlights, I'll cover, what's in this budget at a high level and capture that as well. And then I'm going to turn it over to, and I'm going to introduce, as I talk about each item here, the team that's going to be presenting the budget today. I'm going to turn it over to Shiraz Gill, our Deputy Air Pollution Control Officer, to talk about the significant workload that we expect in the coming year in responding to different mandates, your board's expectations for service, various programs that we run here. Then I'm going to turn it over to Ryan Hayashi, who's another Deputy Air Pollution Control Officer, who's going to talk about the efficiencies and customer service actions that we're taking in the coming year to, again, deliver on the expectations of the public and the board. Then I'm going to turn it over, actually, a new addition to this team, but really somebody who can speak with a high level of competence and somebody who you know really well, Todd DeYoung, who's our grants director of grants and incentives here at the Air District, who's going to talk about the spending plan for the very significant levels of funding that we have available to us in the coming year for various emission reduction incentive programs that we run. And so he'll walk the board and the public through that as well. And then I'll turn it over to Morgan Lambert, Deputy Air Pollution Control Officer, who's actually going to walk through the various revenue and expenditure details that are in the budget. Next slide, please. So let me start the presentation by talking about the prior year and the various activities at the Air District, starting with providing excellent customer service to all of those that we serve. Once again, this last year, we've continued to look for ways to be responsive to the needs of the San Joaquin Valley. There are a lot of difficulties facing the region with respect to various mandates, initiatives, efforts that are going on. And your board has always placed a high priority on providing direct service, having staff here who are competent, who can speak to residents, businesses, and others about their questions, their issues, and really just get that level of service that they've become accustomed to receiving from us. So we did have another great year, record numbers, and I'll go through some of these details, but record numbers in a lot of areas in terms of providing that level of service. Most importantly, perhaps, in looking at our air pollution reduction targets and the efforts that were undergone this last year to reduce emissions consistent with our public health mission, we had another year where we are very effective at reducing NOx emissions, well above our targets, VOC and PM2.5 reductions, all well above our targets that are in our plans and are done through a variety of measures that the board puts into action in partnership with CARB and others. We had effective engagement with various sectors of the Valley, residents, businesses, community organizations, to support these various strategies that we've deployed this last year and advocate for resources. We all know that that's an ongoing effort, and you'll hear more about that. Can never take our foot off the pedal when it comes to bringing those resources to the Valley. We've effectively implemented and enforced our adopted rules and regulations, of which we have many. So there's a lot of work that goes into constant communication with those that are impacted by these rules, proactive compliance assistance, and just making sure that we're able to move forward with those in an effective way. And then we have overall very efficient programs with low administrative overhead, and that's across the board. We continue to look for ways to reduce our costs and do more with the resources that we have and with the high expectations that we have here for ourselves. With respect to air quality progress, just want to dive a little bit deeper into that. This last year, we've continued to see significant improvements with air quality. And so the challenge is tremendous in the San Joaquin Valley due to our various geographic and other challenges that we have here. But the improvements have been dramatic here in the San Joaquin Valley over the years that we've been deploying these different resources to helping improve the air, working again with our various sectors in the valley. We've seen, with respect to ozone, which is our summertime challenge, significant reductions in days that are over these various ozone standards, 98% reduction in days over the 84 part per billion standard, 92% for the 75 ppb standard, and 84% reduction for the 70 ppb standard. So these are, what this means is overall, across the entire valley, residents are breathing cleaner air than ever when it comes to summertime ozone. There's still more work to be done, but it is a very positive indication that these efforts are working, and as we keep looking for more reductions, that those will continue to bear fruit with respect to those improvements. With respect to wintertime PM 2.5, that's the other challenge that the San Joaquin Valley faces. We've seen major progress in reducing these average concentrations, continued progress with the number of good days that we have, increasing those number of good days, reducing the number of moderate days, zero exceedances of the 65 microstandard, and then
Audio right now. We'll pause for a second.
yeah, I'm going to pause for a second. I'm hearing that there's no audio, and I don't know, Chair Chiesa, if you can actually hear me. It looks like you can.
I can hear you just fine.
Okay. Okay, so what I'm hearing is that for Zoom participants, there may be an issue. I'm going to pause for a second here to make sure. We'll need about 90 seconds to bring it up, I'm told. So I'm going to, if you want to refill your coffee or something, you have about 90 seconds to do that. So one of the biggest facets of what the board does in terms of improving the air quality in the valley is develop and adopt and then implement new attainment plans for various standards. Ozone, PM 2.5 are two of the big ones that the board works on. This last year, we continued strong implementation of the latest plans for both PM and ozone. That included implementation of various rule amendments that were included in these plans that impact boilers, steam generators, internal combustion engines, refinery monitoring, and move forward with rulemaking on crude oil production sumps, conservation management practices, furnaces, leak detection, repair rules, and more. There's quite a bit of activity that the board has been undergoing to evaluate these various aspects and move forward with these strategies. We also last year continued successfully implementing the ag burn phase-out strategy that the board put into place. This is the final year of that multi-pronged strategy. By the end of this year, there will be a virtual phase-out of the open burning of these materials that were traditionally burned in the fields. We've seen dramatic reductions in the amount of woody materials that have been burned through this effort, and significant increases in the amount of materials that have been shipped or otherwise dealt with through various beneficial reuse type practices. So this has been a major continued successful implementation this last year. And then, of course, with the Clean Air Act, it's always a challenge, just given the issues that we have in the San Joaquin Valley, again, with meeting these various standards. So this last year, quite a bit of policy development. For example, we're the only area in the country who successfully developed and EPA has now proposed for approval contingency measures this last year. So quite a bit of work on responding to various Clean Air Act mandates and putting solutions into place. This last year, we've also made significant progress in developing a new attainment plan for the 2012 annual PM 2.5 standard. In fact, that plan is scheduled to be taken to the board next month in June. And that included adopting various initial SIP elements in that plan back in the fall of last year: emissions inventory, the BACM analysis, the permitting new source review analysis, with a lot of public engagement and looking into various measures that could be included in that plan. And again, as I mentioned before, successfully develop the contingency requirements that, again, first and only part of the country who's who's put that into place and has received approval from EPA. Last year, we also worked, again, and just sort of elevated our efforts related to community engagement through the AB 617 and other efforts. We moved forward with a various steering committee processes, moved forward with implementing community air monitoring programs in various communities, community emission reduction programs, and moving forward really innovative measures in these different communities that were included in those board adopted programs. You saw quite a bit of activity this last year in moving those forward, and really just listening to communities and trying to figure out ways to respond to their concerns with real and effective measures that can help address various issues that have been raised in these various processes. We've concluded the implementation of the expedited what's called BARCT schedule, the best available retrofit control technology, over this last year. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we're very successful this last year in securing new state and federal funding. This is something that we work on very aggressively in the San Joaquin Valley. We definitely feel like we don't always get our fair share of funding, just given the challenges that we have here, the numbers of underserved communities that we have, and the need basically that we have here. And so we fought and were able to receive quite a bit of funding that's included in this budget in the Farmer program, and you'll see the numbers just listed here on the slide. The Community Air Protection Program. We were actually the biggest award in the country under the Federal Highway Administration's heavy-duty electric vehicle charging network program. Got a $56 million award for that, and just on and on down the list here for various things. Some of these programs are supporting efforts with our residents and transitioning to cleaner vehicles, and others are focused on working with agriculture on transitioning their fleet. For example, the Low Dust Nut Harvester program. You'll hear more about these different programs a little bit later in the presentation. And then with respect to actually using those funds effectively and making a difference in the San Joaquin Valley in reducing air pollution, improving air quality, we did once again operate the most efficient and cost-effective grant program in the state. And just a lot of work goes into that. It's not easy spending this money. It's actually, it's only possible through partnerships with residents and different sectors and putting together programs that are responsive to the needs of those that we work with. These are collaborative projects. This last year, nearly $400 million was provided to replace or retrofit over 36,000 units of emissions. And you'll see some information here. That reduced over 26,000 tons of emissions collectively across these different projects. And that was matched with over $760 million of funding on the part of the partners. So when you look at that grand total, it's actually over $1 billion of investment, really, when you combine the public-private partnership on those projects. So a lot of that funding went to, you'll see here, to working with Valley growers, to replacing over 1,400 pieces of ag equipment, $9 million to continue replacing these ag utility terrain vehicles with zero emission options. Nearly 700 of those were replaced. Replacing trucks, electric vehicle chargers, working with our public agencies, our local municipalities, and educational institutions to help convert their fleets to advanced vehicles, transit, other clean options. And then, of course, as we look at new technology moving forward, $30 million was invested in various heavy-duty fuel infrastructure projects. And so we're seeing more and more interest in helping build out that network that's going to allow fleets to convert to electric, hydrogen, and other technologies. A little bit more information about some of the efforts with these, again, very large nation-leading grant programs that we operate here. $58 million for almost 1,500 projects across the valley to do alternatives to open burning. That covered 75,000 acres of removals this last year, and over 2 million tons of woody waste that under an older baseline would have actually been open burned. That's quite a bit of penetration there within that sector. There was a continued effort to keep supporting the expansion of the chipping fleet that helps provide those alternatives in that program. So about $800,000, kind of the tail end of that program to deploy those pieces of equipment. We've continued working with partners on deploying electric diesel yard trucks. That's becoming more of an option out there at various processors and yards. So that's something that we continue supporting. And as a homegrown program, as many of these are, by the way, these are programs that often are developed here in the Valley and then become models for other parts of the state and the country. Another example of this is nearly $7 million that was used in partnership with Valley Dairies to electrify significant aspects of their dairy operations, the feed mixing process, which is a mixer and some of the peripheral equipment that goes along with that. And we continue seeing demand in that space. We also worked with rail operators to replace locomotives, and we're the statewide operator of the Volkswagen NOx mitigation funding program. We didn't brand that. That's what it's called under the mitigation agreement. But basically, we're the statewide operator of that program, and it funds electric school, transit, and shuttle buses. So we deployed about $15 million under that program this last year. Many of the projects of which are located in the San Joaquin Valley. 1.6 million as another area actually of significant growth, and we're actually leading the state in this effort right now, is the zero emission commercial landscaping replacement program, the last bullet on slide 10. And we actually deployed about $1.6 million of funding to a variety of entities, private, public, to turn over that equipment and have them have more experience with this newer equipment that's becoming available. Continuing on various financial assistance through these programs to Valley residents that we saw this last year, nearly $13 million to repair more than 2,000 vehicles this last year and help these vehicles and residents basically deal with emissions issues and get back on the road, and finish their requirements. Over $12 million to replace nearly 1,300 vehicles through the Dry Clean and San Joaquin Replacement Program. This is a state leading program. It's otherwise known as Clean Cars for All under the kind of state terminology for that. $29 million in rebates to Valley residents for almost 10,000 plug-in electric vehicles. So we're continuing to see interest in that, and quite a bit of interest actually in the San Joaquin Valley, and we'll continue to see that into the future. We have $2 million to Valley residents for over 12,000 residential air filtration units. This is something that your board has heard quite a bit about, especially in response to various elevated air quality levels at times from wildfires and other issues that may come up, and also have a lot of other benefits within the home as well. Over $11 million were provided to Valley residents to replace over 3,000 high polluting wood devices, primarily with natural gas, but we are seeing more interest on the electric heat pump side as well. So quite a bit of interest from residents in partnering on those types of projects. And then lastly, a little bit lower on the total dollar amount, but still a very effective program. We provided almost 3,000 electric, or supported the deployment of almost 3,000 electric mowers and other electric yard equipment through a rebate program. Now, transitioning to public outreach and engagement, we aren't able to do what we do without continually interfacing with residents and others in our community about the importance of the air quality issues, public health issues related to air quality, the complexity of those issues, and really the importance of reducing emissions on an ongoing basis to help achieve our goals, and then of course to protect themselves during periods where the air quality may not be good. That's a constant process, and so we're always looking for ways to evolve that and to be effective, especially as the ways that residents get information changes over time. Super important to keep looking at this. So there's some major areas or elements of how we run these various campaigns. And by the way, they're multilingual, English and Spanish and other languages as well when we see opportunities for that. One of the big facets of that is the Healthier Living Schools program. We have over 1,000 schools enrolled in the Valley. And it's a very strong partnership with different school districts to really help empower these schools and provide information to help them with integrating clean air principles into various aspects of what they do, and keeps growing. For example, the deployment of school buses, electric, and also looking at some of the landscaping equipment. Are some of the newer kind of ways that these partnerships have grown. The tools related to air quality information, the grant funding opportunities, and then kind of tailoring these strategies depending on what's going on. Summertime, wintertime. There's different issues that are related to that, and just working with residents and tailoring again our campaigns to respond to the various needs out there. Social media, as we all know, is just a growing and important way of residents getting their information. So we continue to expand our presence and our understanding of how to use social media to really try to get these various messages out. And then nothing replaces community involvement. And so, we're out there in communities, always looking for opportunities to go to events and interface with residents, different meetings that go on, different health fairs, and whatever, basically just helps have residents get to know us and get to know, more importantly, what the air quality issues are and how we can all be a part of the solution in addressing the various issues that we have here. The annual report to the community, and I should say award-winning annual report to the community, this last year was another excellent example of how we try to provide information to the public in a relatively concise and more understandable manner. It's a great resource. The board just heard this a few weeks ago at our last board meeting, and also just recently received an award from the Central California Public Relations Association for that. And it's also available in Spanish, and I always have to recognize Mayor Preciado for his great idea for that. And so it's something that we try to make as accessible as possible. And we're I think unique. We're actually unique, I think, in taking quite a comprehensive report like that and making it available both in English and Spanish. And then, of course, we have a lot of bilingual and growing sort of capacities, with respect to media and other avenues of getting the word out about different things that are going on in the air quality space. Moving forward, there's a lot of different initiatives that this board puts together, supports, adopts, moves forward with. Just wanted to cover, some of these different elements this last year that we were able to, successfully continue moving forward. The wildfire sort of response and mitigation strategy that we've put together here at the Air District is something that is continually evolving and very important. We actually every year look for even more opportunities for working with, whether it's land managers or whether it's community organizations on looking at the cleaner rooms or cleaner centers. This is a program that is evolving every year as we continue to, as a state and I think as a region, leading the state, try to respond to to various opportunities and impacts that are related to wildfires. Part of that, but not only limited to that, is our interaction with our county public health officers and the San Joaquin Valley Health Officers Consortium. We're an active member or active participant in that, and we have good relationships with our county health officers, and we talk about ways of trying to support, kind of communication strategies and ways of addressing, various public health impacts associated with air quality. I mentioned the Cleaner Centers program and the residential air pure programs. Those are, again, different facets of our wildfire response strategy, along with, other peripheral benefits that come from those. We actually support local research to help inform our strategies. Every year, we're always looking for ways to be a partner or in other ways, try to keep developing the science, the body of science related to air quality, so we can keep evolving, what we do in response to that development of that science. And going back a little bit to some of the burning kind of issues, we just wanted to, again, remind the board and the public that as part of this proactiveness and looking at ways to make it easier, in this case, for residents to be a part of the hazard reduction activities that go on related to wildfires. We're the first region and I think maybe still the only region, but I can't quite confirm that, but definitely the first region in the state to begin coordinating with CAL FIRE on streamlining the burn permit issuance process for those various important activities that happen with that. And then, as I mentioned earlier, received approval from EPA, proposed approval on our contingency package, which was, definitely something that, was very proactive in some ways, and really trying to work with EPA and CARB to figure out, how do we actually comply with that evolving, set of requirements. This last year, just wanted to also very happily report, that we continue demonstrating excellence in government here. That's measured by different, metrics here, but everything from productivity across different programs, permits, inspections, the grants. We just mentioned a lot of the various stats related to our grant programs, the regulatory measures. We're very effective in what we do. We provide excellent customer service to various entities that we interface with. We have a high degree of morale here and good motivation from our staff in responding to these expectations that your board has put into place, and that the San Joaquin Valley public has really just, has come to expect of us, and have a good working relationship here. The district does with the Employees Association, and have a very robust and just a very important work culture here that we call STAR, that is a big part of supporting, what we do here. We did receive an award this last year for best practice in air pollution control from a national association for the Healthier Living Schools program that I mentioned earlier. And wanted to also mention, from an independent auditing point of view, over this last year or so, there was quite a bit of activity, on the fiscal side. Once again, had a strong audit with respect to our finances. I'm actually on the third sub-bullet there, starting with that one. And then on the programmatic side, CARB and the State Department of Finance recently conducted a really large audit, actually a 10-year audit, 10-year look back on hundreds of millions of dollars worth of program implementation, and both on the programmatic side as well as on the fiscal side of the implementation, found that we were, basically just the highest marks possible, successful audit, proactive in what we do, and just a great, again, independent verification of the work that we do here. And then for, I think the 9th year in a row, maybe, we received a Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting from the Government Finance Officers Association, otherwise known as GFOA, this last year. So now I'm just going to pivot over to the budget itself and the guiding principles that were used to prepare the budget. And basically, overall, the big guiding principle here is to have adequate resources to support our public health mission. And there's different facets of that. There's the implementation and the effective implementation of clean air mandates and strategies. There are public health consequences of not being effective in continuing to move forward and make progress with respect to various standards. There's also large economic implications, for example, under the Clean Air Act, if we're not able to put together approvable plans and are then subject potentially to, say, some of the sanctions that are available under the Clean Air Act. So very important to have that effective implementation, again, driven by our public health mission. Providing excellent customer service, is something that takes resources and is again something that the board has always been very has always placed as a high priority for the agency, which includes expedited permit and grant processing. One of our core values is to have strong public accountability and engagement with the community. So having resources in place to have that full accountability, having an effective public education and outreach strategy that I'd mentioned earlier, supporting sound science and air quality modeling so that we make sure that the plans and strategies that we pull together are actually effective in achieving the goals that are intended from those different strategies. And then, of course, continuously improving and innovating here. We do like to take advantage of technology. And just wanted to note that we are, for example, transitioning this entire video teleconferencing system to a new system. We're actually currently in the middle of that process right now. And so, we do these types of improvements on an ongoing basis and are always looking for ways to be ahead of the pack, if you will, on technology. I also wanted to mention that we do something that I think is pretty unique here as a public agency in employing what's called zero-based budgeting as our approach for developing the budget, which, as a quick summary of what that is, basically at the beginning of this budget process, which starts actually towards the end of the calendar year, even earlier, but it's really a full-time process for us here. What you do is you look at every facet of what we do, starting from a zero basis. So you project forward into the coming year and ask ourselves, what is it that we think we need to do for permitting, for grant processing, for developing attainment plans, and you construct your entire budget, not starting from a status quo budget, and then think of as if that is your starting point, but you actually start from a zero base and look for good quantification of what that workload is, but then also equally importantly, look for ways to get that work done through efficiencies, through various measures that you can put into place, through technology, as I mentioned before, and seeing how that might be able to help. So we, once again, this last year, used that process, and it's quite a bit of, it's a very intense process for our directors and management team, and working with various teams here to pull that together. Moving forward with more guiding principles on the budget here, we also want to make sure, and this has been a principle that the board has always prioritized here, is making sure that we have the means and basically can accommodate any state and federal budget uncertainties. As those budgets sort of move up and down, we create budgets and approaches to try to mitigate any potential impacts from that. And so one big example would be we do utilize some temporary staffing on programs that do sometimes can move up and down, and so that is another principle again that we thought about in this budget. We want to minimize red tape and administrative costs. We try to run very lean on and try to be very efficient with everything that we do here. Keep our fees. Part of that is keeping our fees as low as possible, and we do relatively have the lowest fees out there, and can do our work very efficiently here. But also part of that is also advocating always for resources, bringing more resource into the Valley, and always looking for efficiency measures to cut costs here. So as far as our fiscal outlook for the coming fiscal year of 2024-2025, we do see our stationary source operating revenues as stable. So we think that those revenues are basically projected to not be changing significantly. I did want to note that we are undergoing a fee analysis at this time to make sure that moving forward we always do get that program recovery that we're looking for in those various programs. But again, we're projecting stability in that program. We do see the state and federal operating grants are also stable. So we do get some funds from the federal and state governments. EPA 103 and 105 grants, for example, are still in place and are in similar amounts. State subvention, again, we also get that amount as well. And you'll hear a little bit more about those details later in the presentation. And we do see in the coming year significant funding and workload from the administration of various state incentive programs and mandates. So you'll see that in the incentive spending plan that Todd will go over, and you'll see that covered also just with various programs that we operate here, with a lot of revenues anticipated in this fiscal year from the advocacy that's been happening here over this last year, but also with administrative revenues available to offset costs that are associated with implementing these various programs that we operate here. Also wanted to talk a little bit about some of the strategic challenges and opportunities that just looking ahead that we're thinking about and just are always being evaluated. We do need to continue our efforts to reduce air pollution through the implementation of various plans and control measures that your board puts into place. That includes implementing our new, recent plans, and again, here in the near future, there'll be another plan to consider here by the board. That also includes putting together maintenance plans for both ozone and PM standards. And what those mean is that when we basically meet a standard, we also have to write plans now to do what's called maintenance of that standard. And so that's something that, it's a positive side of the effort is when we meet standards, it's very important to, get those plans adopted and move forward and with an eye towards, the latest standards and continuing that march towards meeting those standards. There is a new PM standard, as you know, EPA adopted one here just a few months ago. It's a very stringent standard. It's going to require a lot of research, a lot of partnership with CARB and EPA and all Valley stakeholders to evaluate the need in terms of emissions reduction, to really understand moving forward as transitions are happening across various sectors, what ultimately is going to need to happen to be able to meet the standard under the relatively short timeframes, actually, under the Clean Air Act to meet PM 2.5 standards. So that's something that is going to be a major, I think, both challenge and opportunity moving forward. And then, of course, working with CARB and EPA to approve the various plans that are put in front of the board, and then to CARB and subsequently to EPA. That work continues. The Clean Air Act is very complex, and so we just have to continue the effort to lead the country really with EPA at Region 9, at headquarters with CARB, to continually evaluate these various requirements and make sure the Valley is successfully able to address them. Another major challenge and opportunity for us is continuing to seek reductions from mobile sources under state and federal jurisdiction. We know that in the San Joaquin Valley, while we have authority and jurisdiction over what are called stationary sources and some what are called area sources, when it comes to mobile sources, whether it's heavy duty trucking or locomotives or other sources, they do make up the bulk in many cases of the total air pollution in the San Joaquin Valley. There are efforts underway to reduce emissions from these different sources, but we do need to continue getting creative and really work with fleets to successfully accelerate their transition to different technologies through investments. We need to actually continue advocating for resources to help with, and there's a lot of expectations out there about what ultimately these fleets may look like, and we do need to see more investment in the region to really be able to be successful in making those transitions happen. And then, of course, again, a challenge and opportunity, but I would say mainly opportunities is administering and seeking these various incentive funds that may be out there. We're very, very aggressively looking and are putting forward applications to seek some of these various funds. The state budget, I'm sure you have been following, at least at some level, the challenges that we have here right now in the states with a large deficit projected. So we're within even that environment, we're still looking to see how much and hopefully retain significant air quality funding in that budget, so that advocacy continues. And then just partnerships on various climate and air quality initiatives that are available under various funding streams. That's a major opportunity, but it is something that I think the region needs to continue to look at very carefully in partnership with us, is to make sure we don't miss those opportunities as those programs are released. Just a little bit more on just laying out a few more of these challenges and opportunities. I think the public education that we do and the outreach strategies that we create here to continue garnering public support are critically important for us. We're going to continue to ask for more, from the business community, from agriculture, from residents. The challenge of meeting these standards, warrants that. And I think that strategy overall is only going to be as effective as residents and businesses and public agencies are aware of the importance, number one, of doing that, and number two, are meaningfully engaged on developing these strategies and making sure that there's also equity, centrally grounded in how we think about these things, to make sure that our underserved communities aren't left behind or are unduly impacted by how we go about in moving forward with these different strategies. So I think that is going to be a major challenge moving forward, but also a big opportunity for us. And then, and I covered that, I think, with the second bullet on this slide. And lastly, I think moving forward, we want to continue to set the example for other public agencies. You can never take your foot off the pedal on this. The work culture, what makes our work culture strong here is that it's continually evolving. We're always looking for ways to bring different elements into that, and it's very, a lot of staff-led efforts within that. Continuing to provide exceptional customer service, that we have to keep looking for different ways to provide these programs to different segments of the Valley community, and just be national leaders in air quality management. And we are now, and I look forward and, looking ahead, want to continue to see this agency be in that role. Now, just covering a couple of the major highlights here in the 2024-2025 budget. Overall, the budget is up about 1%, and that reflects full year's funding of some recent position enhancements that the board has made, along with some of the other, and you'll hear a bit more information later about some of the various accounts and kind of where they are. It does include a 6% projected salary savings that's managed through position control here. So overall, it's up a bit by about 1%. We do see, as I mentioned earlier, and you'll hear in about a minute or two, the significant workload that we're projecting in the coming year that we anticipate absorbing through various efficiencies and program flexibilities that we have here to be able to handle those various programs. We once again are projecting and are aiming to have a very strong public education and outreach strategy in the coming year. To hit on various aspects of what we do here and really, again, get the communities involved and engaging us on various measures that will be deployed in the coming year. In this budget, we have the expeditious administration and use of about $575 million of incentive funding accounted for. There is funding in the budget to support Valley-based scientific research efforts, and there's some sort of priority areas that are identified, and that's continually evolving as we see opportunities out there. And overall, it's a balanced budget with adequate reserves and contingencies. So very happy to report that we were able to pull together a recommended budget that meets all of the board's requirements and is balanced. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over now to Shiraz Gill, who is our Deputy Air Pollution Control Officer, to talk about the significant projected workload that we are anticipating in the coming year here.
Thank you, Samir, and good morning. As Samir teed up, the district is expecting significant workload across all major programmatic areas this coming year. And in the next few slides, I'll present an overview of that workload. So in response to EP's reversal on their prior proposal approval of the 2012 PM 2.5 standard portion of the 2018 PM 2.5 plan, the district and CARB have been working very closely on an updated plan for the 2012 PM 2.5 standards. In finalizing the plan, the district will need to work to identify, assess, and craft new feasible cost-effective measures and provide additional technical analyses to secure final approval of the plan by EPA. The district and CARB are working to identify strategies to address contingency measure requirements for the plan as well. In addition, there will be significant effort required to develop ozone and PM maintenance plans. Maintenance plans will be required for the PM10 and 1997 ozone and PM 2.5 standards. These plans will support ongoing compliance with these standards. On March 6, 2024, EPA finalized its revision of the primary annual standard for PM 2.5 by lowering the level from 12 micrograms per meter cubed to 9 micrograms per meter cubed. This next fiscal year, the district will work closely with CARB and EPA to discuss next steps and conduct early analyses to identify potential attainment strategies for this stringent new standard. With the adoption of the 2018 PM 2.5 plan, 2022 ozone plan, and the upcoming 2024 PM 2.5 plan, the district is now in the process of implementing the commitments contained in these plans. Extensive public engagement will be necessary as we move forward with developing the new control measures included in the plans. Focus areas for this year will include on-farm conservation management practices, commercial cooking, and oil and gas rules to meet federal regulations. Over the next year, the district will be working with CARB to approve additional technical analyses and amendments as necessary to secure final EPA approval for the plans. The district, along with a coalition of stakeholders, will also need to work hard at the state and federal level to secure and administrate significant levels of funding necessary for the emission reductions called by these plans. The proposed budget contains over $575 million in appropriations to implement new and existing voluntary incentive grant programs, the specifics which will be addressed later in this presentation under the incentive spending plan. Administrating these programs and dispersing this level of incentive funds will require extensive work. The district must work with stakeholders to identify and solicit projects for the funding, as there must be willing partners in these projects. We are working to develop additional online application portals to enhance access to these programs and also streamline the process of these applications as well. Applications must be evaluated to ensure eligibility and compliance. Emission reductions must be quantified to each project. Emission reductions must be verified through ongoing monitoring and inspections. And we are also working to develop and implement the new community identified programs adopted under the AB 617 Community Emission Reduction Programs. Each of these programs must be approved by CARB before state funding can be used. And for much of the funding, the enabling legislation imposes ambitious deadlines for liquidation of the funds, which means we do not have much time to get the money out the door. The federal budget also includes numerous substantial clean air funding opportunities being made available through the implementation of the Inflation Reduction Act, that bipartisan infrastructure law, and other strategies contained in the Building a Better America initiative. These opportunities are being administered through almost every office in the federal government. The district is aggressively pursuing all relevant opportunities to bring substantial clean air funding to the Valley. These efforts include directly applying for all funding opportunities in which the district is an eligible applicant and building and supporting regional and industry-specific partnerships and coalitions to ensure that these opportunities are taken advantage of. The significant work will require substantial effort in providing guidance as these opportunities are being developed, tracking opportunities as they are released, researching new opportunities, and planning for and submitting proposals for funding. Examples of these opportunities include EPA's Climate Pollution Reduction Grants Program and the Federal Highway Administration's Charging and Fueling Infrastructure Program, under which the district was awarded $56 million for electric vehicle charging depots in the Valley. With the board established priority of strong community engagement, the district is committed to working closely with Valley residents and stakeholders to help communities disproportionately impacted by economic and environmental inequities by forging new partnerships in communities across the Valley. The district will be working to build capacity within communities, share best practices identified within other communities, and leverage cleaner opportunities and resources. Additional work will be needed to identify and secure federal and state funding to support community needs and work with CARB to increase flexibility in the use of existing community air protection funds to address community priorities. As part of the district's community engagement efforts, the district will also need to spend significant efforts on the continued implementation of AB 617. When a new community is selected under AB 617, it represents a multi-year commitment to working with the community on monitoring and emission reduction plans. The district must work with the community steering committees to continue to understand and respond to community needs and implement the numerous measures included in the community emission reduction programs. As the first-year communities of South Central Fresno and Shafter approach the end of the 5-year SERP implementation in February 2025, the district will shift focus to reporting, shifting funds, and strategizing how to meet all SERP commitments in the coming year. New state and federal mandates will also require the expansion of both the federal regulatory air monitoring network as well as the development and deployment of community-level air monitoring networks associated with AB 617 and recently legislation around refinery monitoring. There will also be an emphasis at the state level to conduct additional air monitoring for prescribed burn projects, and the district will play a role in these efforts for the projects in the Valley. Under your board's direction, the district has been expanding the capacity and enhancing the district's Air Quality Modeling Center. The modeling center is used to develop models that are critical to understanding the Valley's complex air quality and evaluating potential strategies as the district prepares numerous attainment plans, SERPs, and to support the development of the district's innovative real-time air advisory network system. Significant staff resources will also be required to continue to develop the in-house capacity necessary to fully utilize the resources available to the modeling center in support of ozone and PM 2.5 plants. In fiscal year 24-25, the district plans to complete numerous exceptional event documentations to demonstrate that pollution episodes caused by wildfires and windblown dust events were beyond the scope and control of the district's comprehensive and stringent air quality management program. Each submittal takes thousands of hours of data gathering, analysis, and modeling to justify to EPA that these high pollution episodes should be excluded. Documentation will be necessary for clean data findings for the upcoming deadlines for the federal particulate and ozone standards. As we have implemented PM 2.5 plans, ozone plans, and BARC commitments, there are several new and existing rules which have been recently adopted by your board that have upcoming compliance dates. These include rules affecting industrial flares, industrial boilers, steam generators, process heaters, internal combustion engines, oil production wells, storage of organic liquids, components at oil, gas, and refining facilities, and ag open burning. Implementation will include significant outreach, compliance assistance, permitting, inspections, testing, monitoring, plan report review, and reporting. The district is also expecting significant permitting and enforcement workload in the next fiscal year, including the need to issue or renew thousands of permits to Valley businesses, assist thousands of small businesses successfully navigate their air quality related obligations, inspect and provide compliance assistance to thousands of businesses, and timely respond to thousands of public air quality complaints. In 2022, amendments were made to the CARB's emissions inventory criteria and guidelines regulation. The amendments increased the number of reportable substances from approximately 700 substances to over 1,700 and made other technical and administrative changes. These amendments will significantly impact the emissions inventory and AB 2588 workload for the district and facilities. The district is currently in the midst of a multi-year phased-in approach to comprehensively reassess the air toxic risk for all Valley facilities under the state's Air Toxics Hotspots program. We are currently in phase 4 of this process with approximately 900 facilities requiring review and analysis in the upcoming year. The district also collects point source inventory for thousands of facilities in accordance with district rules and state regulations. In 24-25, the district will see a significant increase in workload under the state criteria pollutant and toxic emissions reporting regulation, with approximately 5,700 additional facilities expected to come online under the program. In addition, a number of area-wide inventories are also scheduled for update in 24-25. The district will also continue to build on efforts over the past few years to identify and advance alternatives to open burning of ag material. The district is currently in the process of implementing the board-adopted and CARB-approved strategy for the phase-out of open ag burning in the Valley by January 1st, 2025. Significant work will be necessary in this upcoming fiscal year to work with stakeholders to implement and enforce a strategy which prioritizes near-term reductions while taking into account the feasibility of alternatives across different crop types, with the most flexibility given to the smallest growers. The district will also be working hard over the next fiscal year to work with land management agencies to increase the use of prescribed fire and other field reduction efforts to reduce the frequency and magnitude of wildfires. There's a call for a dramatic increase in field reduction efforts and an expectation that air districts and CARB will work to facilitate prescribed fire projects while monitoring emissions from these burns to characterize and minimize impacts. The district's mission to protect public health by improving air quality in the San Joaquin Valley relies on the public's awareness and understanding of the district's air quality improvement programs. In 24-25, the district's clear air efforts and accomplishments will continue to be shared through enhanced multilingual public outreach and education. As always, the key focus will be to maximize the use of existing resources and technology to incorporate new outreach platforms and expand communication goals. As the public's desire for air quality information continues to grow, the district will be continuing to look for ways to enhance our public outreach and education strategies, including our public-facing air quality tools, and the recommendations the district gives to schools, parents, and the general public of steps to protect themselves during periods of poor air quality. The district will further develop a collaborative partnership with Valley Public Health directors and officers, including participation in the San Joaquin Valley Public Health Consortium. The district will also work to leverage this relationship to convey health messaging more broadly to Valley residents. The district is committed to implementing a robust public engagement and outreach program to ensure participation from a wide variety of sectors, including the Valley residents, the business community, community representatives, municipalities, community-based organizations, and others. The district will continue to host multiple multilingual community outreach events throughout the district's many historically underserved communities. And this includes providing multilingual support, event guidance, technical information, and other resources. In 24-25, the district will continue to work with land management agencies as we pursue a wide variety of strategies aimed at reducing wildfire emissions. As part of this effort, the district will further develop a targeted public education campaign to increase public awareness of the damage to public health due to wildfires and build public support for increased prescribed burning that may help reduce the number and severity of wildfires in the future. Consistent with your board priorities and in support of attainment efforts, the district will be working to leverage university and other available research resources to support health and scientific studies in a number of important areas, including understanding the short-term, long-term public health changes and public health impacts associated with continued air quality improvement efforts, studies in support of understanding the changing PM 2.5 source apportionment, nature of mobile source emissions, particularly heavy-duty vehicles, to refine understanding of the Valley's pass-through truck traffic emissions and aid in the development of the state and federal mobile source control measures, understanding the feasibility of potential measures to reduce dust from fallowed lands due to implementation of SGMA and enhanced conservation management practices, impacts to local air quality and health of Valley residents during wildfire events, understanding the technology development and demonstration programs to advance deployment options or methods deployed during dispose of agricultural waste material and the deployment of the latest low dust nut harvesting technologies. And finally, understanding the nexus between air quality and climate change to identify co-beneficial opportunities to reduce both criteria air pollutants and greenhouse gases. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ryan Hayashi to discuss the efficiency and streamlining measures.
All right, thank you very much, Shiraz. Good morning, members of the board. Happy to be here today. Today, I have the pleasure of sharing with you some of the efficiency and customer service focused efforts the district has recently completed, as well as those currently in the development and implementation phases, with the goal of continuing to address the high volume of existing and new workload as previously discussed, all with an eye towards ensuring we continue to provide the highest level of customer service that your board has established for this agency. The management team under your board's direction has spent considerable time and effort promoting our STAR work culture, resulting in an extremely positive working environment where employees show significant ownership over the programs they work in and the organization as a whole. This is seen through the thousands of employee suggestions that have been received and implemented, resulting in a collaborative and solution-oriented workforce. Training plays a key role in all of our efficiency efforts, and towards that end, apologize for that. Training plays a key role in all of our efficiency efforts, and towards that end, staff receive advanced cross-training within and outside of their departments, allowing for maximum flexibility to be able to handle the ever-changing and cyclical workloads. The district also strategically uses temporary staffing, which allows us to reduce costs, minimize overtime, and to address fluctuating workloads. I'm happy to report that the majority of the documents we receive now are being processed paperlessly across all departments, including internal paperless processing workflows, and scanning all hard copies of documents and developing resources to identify and locate records more quickly. The district recently fully transitioned to using new public records request software, which has significantly streamlined work processes and improved and simplified tracking mechanisms to ensure all requests are being properly addressed. Additionally, the new public records request system continues to expand the already extensive public information that's available on the district's internet website. This transition also includes electronic processing of documents such as requisitions, claims for payment, permit applications, hearing board packets, and public notice packages, which has also helped to reduce processing and handling times. Timely completion of work is of the utmost importance, and with that in mind, we have been developing better guidance, tools, and training for management and supervisory staff to improve the quality and tracking of staff work assignments. As a public agency, it is important for us to hear from and interact with the many communities throughout the Valley. And over the last several years, the district has devoted significant resources to improve and expand our community engagement efforts. As part of these efforts, especially those pertaining to engaging low-income and disadvantaged communities across the Valley, numerous tools have been used to facilitate and improve community discussion with the goal of creating more deliberative and interactive processes. Communication with our stakeholders is essential, and we continue to look for ways to better outreach and engage with the public, including with working closely with the district's Environmental Justice Advisory Group, enhancing the district's website, including adding multilingual functionality and strategic use of social media. The district's community engagement efforts have involved considerable need for the interpretation and translation services in order to provide access to district services. To address this need, the district developed policies and procedures for the translation of key documents into additional languages and providing trained interpreters and translated documents for public meetings where there is expected to be limited English participants. While being able to expend hundreds of millions of dollars in grant funding sounds simple, in actuality, it requires constant program evaluation to search for and find additional opportunities to improve processes and project tracking. The grants team has developed and implemented several such measures and are pursuing additional ones, including continually making improvements to the district's grant management system, the in-house developed software that manages all grants processed, including enhancements to internal controls and project monitoring, and streamlining claim processing for faster payment to applicants. There are also ongoing efforts to improve the efficiency of the numerous online grant portals that allow parties to submit grant applications, such as alternatives to ag burning, drive clean, tractor replacement, clean air rooms program, fireplace, and wood stove changeout, including adding business rules to ensure all needed information is submitted and workflow notifications to ensure projects are being processed as expeditiously as possible. Customer experience is also very important. For this reason, the various grant application portals have been developed to allow users the ability to view all new and historical applications, current status of their projects, submit required reports, and submit claims for payments. Additionally, the grants team has expanded their electronic workflows to incorporate electronic and digital signature processes, which reduces the amount of time necessary to enter into and execute contracts. We also look to continue to expand the reach of grant programs to more Valley communities, using resources such as seeking guidance from the district's EJAG and attending more in-person community events, which we have received considerable appreciation from community residents and community-based organizations. To ensure the quality and accuracy of the nearly 50 air monitoring stations across the Valley, the air monitoring team has developed several new measures to increase data availability and decrease maintenance needs, including replacing of air monitoring equipment such as calibrators and zero air generators with the newest models that enhance remote connection capabilities, and decreasing analyzer downtime and maintenance costs associated with operating older equipment. We are planning on purchasing a 3D printer to enable us to quickly create new needed and custom parts for the air monitoring network, decreasing equipment downtime by being able to create the part quicker than having to order it and wait for the piece to be shipped, and will allow for increased staff innovation to develop and test parts to improve existing systems. We are also working on implementing a cybersecurity strategy at the air monitoring stations to reduce the number of access points into the district systems. This will allow us to remove some pieces of hardware and eliminating the maintenance and support needs for that equipment. New data acquisition system and remote control setup at monitoring stations allows for increased control and automation of station tasks and decreasing the number of on-site visits needed. The district's air quality analysis team are using new automated air quality data and monitoring management system that has significantly reduced the time needed to perform quality assurance and control of data, and are currently working on adding new features to streamline processes. The team uses a state-of-the-art modeling system that allowed the district to process a high number of attainment strategies more efficiently while reducing our dependence on CARB for modeling support, and it's being used to support the development of the plan to address the 2012 PM 2.5 standard. We are currently working on upgrading the district's geographic information system software that will provide improved data management capabilities, enhanced spatial analysis tools, more accurate geocoding, better visualization options, and increased support of 3D mapping. The district's finance team continues to look for creative solutions that enhance customer service while also streamlining staff responsibilities. These include enhancements to the district's online portal for businesses and residents, which allows Valley residents and businesses to view invoices and to make payments via credit cards, debit cards, and e-checks. User safety is of the utmost importance, and we've added additional security software to district online portals to further protect data transfers. The district's new payroll administration provides additional customization features, increasing process efficiency and improving data integrity. And we are in the process of testing new enterprise resource planning software to handle the district's finance and human resource needs, which have the ability to enhance flow of revenue, data security, stakeholder convenience with improved tracking and recording capabilities. The district relies heavily on IT solutions to provide essential services to Valley stakeholders and district staff. Some of the efficiency and customer service enhancements instituted and in development include upgrading all computer operating systems to ensure staff has access to the latest computer features and software. We're in the process of developing multi-site redundancy between the district offices to ensure all air quality information in district services are available at all times. We use advanced security software to monitor over 100 individual servers, each with detailed monitoring requirements, saving the district considerable staff resources. And we recently began using new network management software that proactively identifies and resolves real-time issues and automatically provides needed updates and security patches to network devices. We've also begun limited utilization of artificial intelligence services and are currently in the process of evaluating beneficial uses to improve our efficiency and enhance customer service. The primary goal of the district's enforcement program is to be in the field conducting tens of thousands of inspections and complaint investigations each year. And in order to be able to complete this work, constant evaluation of existing processes must be performed and improvement actions taken. Recently, the district has implemented numerous measures to increase inspection capacity, including online and smartphone complaint portal system, which allows photo and video submittal by people reporting complaints, and our staff automatically receive these reports. We're currently developing a smartphone application for the creation and submittal of compliance inspection reports. We're developing a dust control plan and asbestos portal to allow for submittal of required plans and notifications, both improving service to the public and eliminating manual data entry. The grant program enhancements that we've added to directly assign staff work and added milestone tracking to ensure inspections are being completed as quickly as possible. We've also partnered with CAL FIRE to develop the first of its kind agreement to incorporate districts' hazard reduction burn permit into their online permitting system. Staff are provided the latest in technology to perform their jobs, including exhaust gas analyzers, forward-looking infrared cameras, and toxic vapor analyzer. And we continue to prioritize education as one of the primary means to increase compliance for the district, state, and federal requirements. And towards that end, we routinely develop compliance assistance bulletins to make Valley residents and businesses aware of any recent regulatory amendments and upcoming compliance dates. The Permit Services Department continues to look to develop efficiency and customer service enhancements, including internally developed online public information portal that allows stakeholders access to permit-related public records, significantly reducing the number of public records requests that the district is receiving. We're in the process of enhancing the web-based related tools and resources to make it easier for Valley businesses to meet the requirements of the employer-based trip reduction rule, including creating a new webpage with improved ability for users to submit registration plans and annual survey results. And to address the state requirements regarding the Air Toxics Hotspots Information and Assessment Act, the district has been consolidating air toxics and emissions inventory databases which simplifies tracking and added the ability to prioritize facilities for evaluation more easily. We're taking the statewide lead for writing hotspots guidance for the auto body coding operations, which is allowing us to streamline the required assessment of these operations while obtaining all necessary information. We are also developing enhancements to our permit administrative system to facilitate hotspots project tracking. To address emission inventory requirements for the state's criteria air pollutant and toxic air contaminant regulation, commonly referred to as CTR, we have added new programming to the permit administration system, which ensures accurate and efficient tracking of CTR applicability and reporting year by facility. We've added new staff interface data entry forms to streamline data inputs, enhance accuracy and quality through automation. Currently working on developing new automation processes to log in emissions inventories projects to reduce the amount of clerical time necessary to manually log these types of projects and to notify staff of its receipt and readiness for processing. We've also added features for online portal emission inventory submittals that automates the creation of projects. And at this point, I will turn it over to Todd DeYoung, the Director of Grants and Incentives, to discuss the incentive spending plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm going to spend the next several minutes going through the process and how we administer the district's incentive-based strategies and how we use a set of principles that have been developed by your board to develop and to implement our incentive spending plan, how we construct that incentive spending plan, which again, this fiscal year tops $575 million. We used a set of principles that again have been developed by your board through the years. And the first one of those is focus on achieving the greatest emission reduction benefits in an expedited manner. We need the most amount of emission reductions we can get as quickly as we can get them. So that's kind of our number one tenet that we go by when we implement our incentive-based strategy. We promote efficient and timely access to funding. This is critical. We need to meet industry residents where they are. We need to be as efficient as we can possibly be in the administration of our incentive program fundings. Whether that means getting a deep understanding of procurement cycles of a business that wants to, purchase new equipment, understanding the agricultural industry and their time frames for purchasing equipment or harvesting. We really want to make sure that we're meeting industry, meeting folks where they are, and being as efficient as we can with the access to this funding. We want to make sure that we have equal district outreach in all regions. We have a 25,000 square mile boundary in our district, 59 cities, 8 counties. There's a lot of outreach that needs to be done, and we want to make sure that we're giving everybody equal access to the incentive funding that's available through our programs. And we need folks to know about it. These are all voluntary programs, and so we need for businesses to know about our programs. We need for industry to know about our programs. We need for residents to know about our programs and how they access those programs and make it easy for them to access those programs. So that outreach is really critical. We have a variety of strategies that we use. Depending on the program, we have very targeted outreach for some programs. We have very wide sort of global outreach for other programs, and it's really developed, internally and externally, working with industry groups, trade groups, community groups on the different types of outreach that are necessary under the programs. We want to maximize the flexibility within the deadlines that we have to provide the best possible customer service. You've heard customer service is a consistent theme across all of the operations here at the district, and we want to make sure that we're providing that outstanding customer service. We want to, again, that gets back to meeting people where they are, meeting industry where they are, meeting businesses where they are, and getting a really good understanding of the needs of the people that are going to be taking advantage of these programs. We don't want to implement artificial deadlines and artificial barriers. We want to make sure it's as streamlined and as easy as possible to access these grant funds. We want to make sure that these are actual SIP creditable emission reductions. We want to make sure that to the extent possible, we're getting credit for the emission reductions and for the money that's being invested in the Valley as we're working towards meeting our federal and state air quality mandates. We want to make sure that what we're doing is making a difference in those programs and is reflected in those plans. We're always seeking opportunities to leverage other funds and promote partnerships. One of the key tenets of all of our programs is stakeholder buy-in. And you've seen, consistently that, the grant programs that we operate don't generally cover 100% of the cost of anything. We think the stakeholder buy-in is critical. And we're always looking to establish those partnerships, and we're always looking to leverage the funding that we have with additional state funding, additional federal funding, additional local funding, and then stakeholder buy-in as well. So the folks that are taking advantage of our programs, the businesses, they're investing in these key programs as well. And so as we develop our incentive spending plan, there are a set of key factors that we look at. Again, cost effectiveness is that first one. Biggest bang for your buck. How much emission reductions can we get for every dollar that we're investing in these new technologies? The inventory of projects. As we develop new programs and as we refine programs, we want to make sure that there are enough projects out there to make a successful program. And again, since these are voluntary programs, we want to design our programs to ensure that businesses and residents actually want to take advantage of these. It has to be a win-win, for industry, for residents to take advantage of these programs. And so that inventory of projects is a real critical thing that we need to understand when we're developing programs. And when we're, looking at modifying programs, we want to make sure that we maintain that inventory of available projects. The statutory funding constraints. We deal with dozens and dozens of individual funding sources from the state level, the federal level, local level. Every one of those funding sources comes with statutory constraints that we have to be aware of. And that's everything from the type of equipment you can fund, how much you can fund, what percentage you can provide. And there's details in every one of those funding sources that we have to be aware of. Deadlines for expenditure. Every funding source comes with deadlines when you have to spend the money by. So as we're looking at these programs across the board, we have to make sure that what we're proposing works with the deadlines that are associated with each of those funding sources. Health benefits is another critical one. We want to make sure that our programs are providing health benefits. And in some programs, that means that maybe cost effectiveness isn't the most critical factor. Things like our school bus program provides emission reductions in neighborhoods and to children who are riding buses. Maybe not the most cost effective of projects that we operate, programs that we operate, but they're providing those critical emission reductions within those communities and providing those health benefits to those residents that need them the most. Technology advancement is also a critical component of what we do. We have to make sure that we're pushing the envelope, that we're innovating, that we are demonstrating and deploying the cleanest available technology, the newest available technology. A couple recent examples of that would be the Frito-Lay project up in Modesto, where we deployed some of the, you've all heard the first of their kind Tesla electric trucks. Most recently, we're working with OK Produce right here in South Central Fresno. Again, they're going to be deploying, state-of-the-art zero-emission truck technology right within one of our AB 617 communities. Fantastic project that we're working on there. And most recently, we're working with Watt EV. You guys heard just a couple months ago about the Watt EV project that's going to be providing some significant funding for infrastructure that's going to be necessary to support zero emission goods movement in and around the Valley. So, all of these things, technology advancement is a critical component of what we do. We're always looking for the next great thing. Environmental justice and community level focus. We work very, very closely with our environmental justice advisory group. Your board has put a significant priority on providing funding to traditionally underserved communities and underserved residents throughout the valley. So those two tenets are very, very key as we're looking at developing our programs and assigning funding through our spending plan. And then again, strong program outreach. It gets back to that inventory of projects. You know, we can't do what we do unless we have the projects. And so that program outreach is critical, working with industry groups, working with community groups, working with dealer networks, you know, to promote these projects and really getting the word out. You know, social media, targeted outreach, global outreach, all of those things are critical in what we do. So now I'm going to dive into a little bit of the details about the spending plan. And our spending plan is really broken up into three major components. The first one is our community incentive programs, then our heavy duty programs, and then some of our technology advancement programs. So as I mentioned, we work very, very closely with our Environmental Justice Advisory Group, and they provide us with feedback, they provide us with recommendations on how we can be more efficient and how we can target some of our sources. And then they provide us on a yearly basis, they provide us with their recommendations on how we should be spending our incentive funds. So that right-hand column, wherever you see that check mark, is a specific EJAG recommendation for funding for this spending plan. And again, that's done on an annual basis, and then those are incorporated into the spending plan as we work on it. So the first one is our fireplace wood stove changeout program. This is our community level incentive programs. We've got $16.2 million allocated for that. Our Clean Air Rooms program, which provides individual residential air filter devices. We've got $1.7 million allocated to that. The Wildfire Smoke Clean Air Centers program is a program that's been operated for the last several years. We're at the very, very tail end of that. That provides clean air center funding for smoke impact days, wildfire impact days, where residents can seek shelter from the impacts of wildfires. We have about $45,000 left in that program, just at the tail end of administering that program. The next is our Drive Clean in the San Joaquin program. It's three components there. We've got vehicle replacement, vehicle rebates for new vehicle purchases, and then funding for our tune-in, tune-up vehicle repair program. Our zero emission landscaping equipment voucher program, that's the commercial side of we have two programs that target landscaping equipment. The zero emission landscaping equipment voucher program is the commercial side, and we've got about $4 million allocated to that program in the coming fiscal year. This one's been a surprise to us. We've seen a tremendous uptake in this program over the last year, and we're very, very excited about the future of this program. And then the Clean Green Yard Machine is our residential program, which continues to be extremely popular. It allows residents to upgrade from gas-powered equipment to cordless electric equipment. And then we have what's called our VMT reduction, or vehicle miles traveled. These are things that support a reduction in VMT, or vehicle miles traveled. This includes things like bike paths, infrastructure type projects, video teleconferencing systems, and e-mobility, those sorts of things. So we've got $1 million allocated to that. Moving on to our heavy duty equipment programs, we've got about $300 million out of the $575 that are going into this program, and there are certainly reasons for that. Generally speaking, heavy duty equipment replacement gives you that biggest bang for your buck. Great emission reductions, extremely cost-effective types of projects. So we're continuing with a significant investment in our agricultural equipment replacement program. We've got over $156 million in that program for the coming fiscal year. Our truck replacement program continues to be very robust. We've got another $20 million allocated to that as well. Our alternative fuel infrastructure program supports the development and the deployment of the zero emission technology. This program funds not only heavy duty electric infrastructure, but as well as hydrogen infrastructure. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, I got two waters now. What a team. This is great. And so the infrastructure is a critical component to support the deployment of that zero emission technology as we move forward. Agricultural pump electrification is another critical component. We've got another $1 million allocated to that program as well. Something that's been very, very successful over the last several years is our low dust nut harvester equipment replacement program. This supports a reduction in fugitive dust, as well as you're enhancing, you're getting cleaner engines in this equipment out there. So you're getting actually a reduction in NOx and PM as well from the engine side, as well as the fugitive dust side by employing this low dust nut harvesting technology. We've got locomotives and rail car movers and switchers funded at about $2 million for this coming fiscal year. And then we've got $1 million for our emergency vehicle replacement program as well. We've replaced some emergency vehicles in the valley, some fire trucks and things like that through this program. Continuing on in the heavy duty equipment programs, we've got $3.2 million available for electric yard trucks. These are trucks that move trailers around in distribution facilities, agricultural facilities, and other areas where trailers are moved. And so we've got funding available for that. Our electric agricultural utility vehicles, or UTV program, we've got another $5 million allocated to that. Again, this is one of those surprise components in my mind. The agricultural industry really took to this program. It's a fantastic program. It replaces old gasoline-powered and diesel-powered utility terrain vehicles out on the farm with these new zero emission options, and it's been a fantastic success. Our off-road dairy feed process electrification, we've got another $5 million allocated to that program. We're already working with several dairies on, some potential projects and ways that they can enhance their operations and become more efficient and reduce emissions in those feeding operations. Our off-road engine repower program, we've got about $3 million in this program. It's not quite as useful as it was several years ago, but what this does, it allows you to swap out an engine in an existing piece of equipment without buying a whole new piece of equipment. Now, due to a variety of reasons, it's not necessarily as easy these days with all the electronics that are incorporated into these new engines to do repowers, but there are still a significant number of opportunities there. So we've got some funding for that program. Our school bus replacement program, again, one of those exposure reduction, the health benefits to this program are critical, and it's been fantastically successful. School districts up and down the valley and throughout the state are really taking advantage of all of the funding that's available for these programs. The valley has really stepped up big in terms of their interest in this program, so we're funding that with another $21 million. Zero emission forklifts is a component that we've recently launched and we're very excited about. We're working with manufacturers and dealers right now to understand the types of projects that are out there. We've already got a lot of interest in the program, so we've got a $4 million allocation for that program. And then the Ag Burn Alternatives Program. This supports the phase out of agricultural burning in the San Joaquin Valley. This has been unbelievably successful over the past several years, and so we're continuing with a significant investment in that program for the coming fiscal year. And so moving on to advanced technology and vehicle programs, the statewide electric transit bus transit school and shuttle bus program. This is the Volkswagen Mitigation Trust program. We're really at the tail end of this program. This was a $130 million program a couple of years ago, and we're forecasting just that remaining piece is all that's going to be necessary for the next fiscal year to completely implement that program. We're actually working with the state right now on the potential to try and steal other states' money that may not be as effectively being utilized. So we're working right now to see what we can do to bring more of that money here to California and particularly into the Valley. So stay tuned on that one. We may have other things in the works there. Our public benefit grants program provides funding for zero emission and near zero emission vehicles in public agencies, primarily light-duty vehicles. So plug-in hybrids and electric vehicles for public agency use. And again, to support that, we've got our Charge Up EV charger program. This is primarily for light-duty vehicle charging infrastructure, smaller scale projects throughout the valley, and we're supporting that with another $2 million investment this fiscal year. The OK Produce project that we talked about and that your board has heard about, we've got about 11.2 million of that project that's going to be allocated for this next fiscal year. It's moving forward right now. We're working on contracting in that project and really getting that project off the ground. So we anticipate a significant investment in the coming fiscal year for that program. And then the Watt EV electric charging depot project that we brought to your board just a couple of months ago, we're forecasting a significant amount of that funding to be utilized in this next fiscal year for the construction of those two charging stations. And then finally, the restaurant charbroiler technology program. This is to install advanced filter technology for under-fired charbroilers. It's something that we've been working on, sort of on the technology advancement side, pushing the envelope, seeing what's out there, and really pushing hard to implement that restaurant charbroiler technology where we can. And so another significant portion of our spending plan includes the funding that's available in the AB 617 program. We have the 4 community emission reduction program communities, South Central Fresno, Shafter, Stockton, and then Arvin Lamont. And so these have been previously approved by your board. The categories on this slide, and I'm not going to go through each one of them, but the categories here are consistent with your board approved strategies within those SERPs for those individual communities. And so we've got $105 million in community air protection funding in total allocated to those SERPs in those individual communities. And that concludes my presentation, and I will hand it back to Morgan.
Good morning. At this point, I will go over some of the financial details of the recommended budget. Here we go. A little bit of a lag. Since Samir covered kind of the scheduling issues around our budget, I'll kind of skip ahead a little bit. And first, I'll provide an overview of the requirements of the district's administrative code as they pertain to the annual budget process. Then I'll present on the next few slides details of the operating and non-operating budgets. So when it comes to the adoption of the budget, you're consistent with the district's administrative code. Your board adopts the budget resolution at the object level, except for the fixed asset accounts, the capital accounts, which are adopted at the sub-object level. So for the district's budget, the object levels are the salaries and benefits object, the service supplies object, and the fixed assets object. So the first two of those adopted and controlled at the object level. The fixed asset capital expenditures, they're controlled down at the sub-object level, which are things like computer equipment, the automobiles account, things of that nature. In your handout, you should, or we're provided with a 4-page budget summary report. Page 1 of that report is the high-level budget summary of appropriations and revenues. Page 2 has the schedule of estimated revenues, with the operating revenues on the top half of the page and the non-operating revenues on the bottom half of the page. Page 3 are the operating appropriations, and then page 4 represent the non-operating appropriations. So as we go along, I'll be referring to the details that are on these reports if you would like to follow along. This chart provides a high-level overview of the fiscal year 24-25 recommended budget appropriations. The total appropriations are about $650 million, with roughly 90% of those, or $575 million, on the non-operating side, with the remaining 10 or so percent, $74 million, representing the district's operating budget. The operating budget is dedicated to the district's internal operating costs for achieving its mission. Operating costs include staffing, service supplies, and fixed assets. The non-operating budget represents primarily incentives that the district provides in the form of grants for voluntary emission reduction projects. If you wish to follow along on your budget documents, this will be starting on page 2, the top half of page 2 on the documents on the operating revenues, with specific focus on the column that is titled, what is the title here? Recommended 24-25 budget. So it's about right in the middle of the page with that column. The estimated permit fees for 24-25 is estimated at $21.3 million, which is 3% higher than the estimated 23-25 amount. Projected revenues for 24-25 are conservatively estimated based on actual revenues received year to date in this current fiscal year. On the next item, we have the Section 185 federal non-attainment fees that apply to certain major stationary sources here within the Valley. These fees are required under federal law, and they're estimated at $360,000 for the next fiscal year, which is conservatively estimated based on the actual revenues received this year, as well as a federally mandated CPI adjustment that we have to make to these fees each year. The next line contains the Advanced Emission Reduction Option, or AERO fees. These fees are applied to facilities with boilers, steam generators, and process heaters in support of accelerating the deployment of advanced control technologies. We expect to receive about $4.6 million in AERO fees in the next fiscal year. This is $2 million higher than the estimated revenue for the current fiscal year, and this is due to recent amendments to the rule to further increase the stringency of emission limitations within the rule. Interest revenue is expected to be about $2 million. Fresno County Treasury handles the district's fund investments and provides a very competitive interest rates for the district. Residential furnace penalties are estimated to be $200,000 under the district's ongoing implementation of the district's residential furnace regulation. There is, I think, currently right now just one more category where people have the short-term option to pay fees under that rule as the technology is advanced to further reduce emissions. Moving on to operating grants. These operating grants help the district to maintain air monitoring stations, help develop air quality plans, develop rules, support enforcement, permitting, and public outreach activities here at the district. State subvention, EPA 105, EPA 103 operating grants are expected to remain consistent with prior years, and revenue is estimated at $2.9 million. We expect to receive $12.7 million in state AB 617 grants to support the district's implementation of state mandates under AB 617. It's important to note that this funding is included in the current state approved budget. So, it's not tied up with all the issues that we're currently seeing in the state side with the budget deficits right now. Next, the district is estimating $13.4 million in DMV fees used for operating costs. These fees are collected for registered vehicles that are operating within the San Joaquin Valley. On the grant administrative funds earned, it is estimated at $10 million for next fiscal year. These funds are received from the state and federal government on the non-operating side, and then reimbursed to the operating side for the costs associated with incentive program administration, such as Farmer, Community Air Protection, Moyer, and other grant programs that we run here at the district. Additionally, every year the district transfers money from the operating budget to the non-operating budget to fund emission reduction projects. This recommended budget includes a transfer of $5.3 million to support incentive program implementation. This budget also includes the use of approximately $9.2 million of fund balance. So now let's move on to the operating appropriations. This is on the operating appropriations is the recommended budget are located on page 3 of your handout. This slide summarizes the changes in the operating budget at the object level. If you refer to your handout, the numbers I'm showing here are in the budget to budget comparison column. This column shows the difference from last year's adjusted budget to this year's recommended budget for each account, with the subtotal at the bottom of each object level. This slide is showing the budget to budget comparison for the total of 3 object levels in our operating budget. The proposed operating budget shows a 1% increase compared to last year's adjusted budget. As you can see from the slide in your handout, salaries and benefits in total are up about $620,000. Service supplies are up about $200,000, and the fixed asset accounts are up about $80,000. In the next few slides, we will go over the changes in each of these object levels in more detail. The district's salaries and benefits appropriation in the recommended budget total $59.6 million and make up about 81% of the overall operating budget. This slide details the changes from last year's adjusted budget for the salaries and benefits object level. The changes to salaries and benefits line items reflect a full year appropriations for the reclassification of positions approved by your board in fiscal year 23-24. The regular salaries also reflect projected merit step increases for existing staff here at the district. The next line represents the district's temporary help for situations where the work and or funding are short-term in nature. Most temporary help is in support of the district's incentive programs currently. The district also operates an after-hours on-call complaint response program to address air quality concerns. And this next year, we're projecting no change to the on-call pay estimates. No change to overtime is projected. Overtime represents our hourly estimates, which are based on departmental needs and established deadlines, which will require overtime for the completion of key assignments. But in this next year, we expect that to stay consistent with prior years. The unemployment account is seeing a minimal change from the prior year adjusted budget, with rates staying the same into the new fiscal year. The next line describes the change to the district's retirement costs. The change here reflects a slight decrease in the retirement cost of 1%, or about $175,000. The decrease in retirement costs is due to the decrease in the district's retirement rate, which is resulting from measures implemented by your board in previous years. On the workers' compensation line, this expense reflects an increase of 1%, or about $5,000. The district continues to participate in proactive risk management and loss prevention programs, which has resulted in an overall low workers' compensation rates. There is a $15,000 increase for cafeteria plan benefits, which is related to increased costs for benefits for our temporary staffing that's included in the budget. The following line for long-term disability insurance is reflecting a $6,000 decrease resulting from a 7% decrease in the district's insurance rate for long-term disability insurance. Lastly, there's a slight increase in the old age survivors and disability insurance and alternate transportation incentive line items. This is just resulting in some changes in the staffing mix that we have, as well as the participation levels in that alternate transportation program. On the next slide, we're moving on to the service and supplies object level. In total, total service supplies are up about 2% compared to the 23-24 adjusted budget. Many of these accounts can see significant year-to-year variations, and on the slide, I'll be explaining those accounts which have had the most significant changes. The mobile communications account is down about 10%. This decrease is achieved through lower negotiated rates with our service providers. The telephone charges account is also down about 57%. This decrease reflects technical and maintenance savings as a result of the district's new phone system that we implemented a year or so ago. The insurance line item is up about 12%. As has been seen across the state, this increase is due to continually increasing insurance rates that everyone is seeing right now, unfortunately. Computer software and supplies is up about 20%. This budget includes funding to provide district staff resources for enhanced project management that will be utilized across all district programs, improving tracking and accountability. On the publications and legal notices line item, it's projected to be up about 25%. This increase over last year is based on projected plan and regulatory development that's necessary, and the raising publication costs that we're seeing. The rents and leases is down about 25%. This is due primarily to some lower cost lease agreements at some of our air monitoring stations that we've been able to get into. And then finally on this is our legal services, which is up about 27%. And this increase represents ongoing and anticipated legal costs. On this next slide, this slide provides highlighted item details for the professional and specialized services account 6660, which is the district's largest service and supplies account with a recommended budget of $2.9 million. This account is where you'll find the majority of our service contract agreements, and it tends to vary sometimes significantly through the normal fluctuations that occur as scheduled projects begin and end, year over year. This slide lists the costs associated with those items, which together make up the majority of the amount budgeted in the next fiscal year. The first on the list is our multilingual marketing and outreach services contract, which is currently set at $878,000 in the budget. This represents the comprehensive multimedia marketing responsible for the district's highly successful educational outreach program and campaigns. This outreach is designed to generate public interest in support of our air quality improvement programs and thereby affect meaningful change in public behavior. The next item is for public engagement services for AB 617. As discussed previously, the district continues to work with the selected communities in the Valley to prepare and attend community steering committee meetings. The recommended budget includes $670,000 to provide the level of support needed to implement effective public engagement for the communities under AB 617. Next, we have $200,000 budgeted to support Valley-based air quality research to help inform strategy development. And then next, we have the community outreach services line. This account represents resources to provide the necessary outreach services in support of the district's community engagement efforts, including interpretation, document translation, marketing of programs, outreach, and mini grants, as well as supporting public events for a total of $152,000. Excuse me. Lastly, we have the socioeconomic analysis for rural development projects. Consistent with your board's direction and as required under state law, the district evaluates the potential economic impacts of rules as they are being developed to ensure thoughtful and complete deliberation on what can be very costly regulations. This budget contains $150,000 included for this purpose. Next, we will take a look at our planned capital spending. Like our professional and specialized service account, the capital spending accounts can vary sometimes significantly due to normal progression of various projects that begin and end from one year to the next. As illustrated on page 3 of the budget report handout, our total fiscal assets are showing at a $78,000 increase compared to last year's adjusted budget. As I did with service supplies, I will go over the accounts that are experiencing the most significant changes from the previous year's budget. The facilities and equipment account is up about $245,000. This account represents necessary improvements to the district's offices and facilities and is budgeted to make sure necessary upgrades are made, including the addition of additional charging infrastructure for district electric vehicles and the replacement of several HVAC units that are necessary across the 3 regional offices. The computer equipment account has decreased by approximately $220,000 due to completion of one-time projects during the last fiscal year. Lastly, the office machine account has decreased by about $21,000. This decrease in the account is reflected by the continuous efforts to move work processes digital and reduce the need to replace or maintain the copiers that are located in the district's offices. So this wraps up the portion of the recommended operating appropriations. Now we'll move on to the non-operating budget. This slide summarizes the non-operating budget in kind of one table. The column titled Reserves totals $234 million and includes all estimated non-operating revenues. The next column provides a detail of the new revenues, which total $341 million. Taken together, there is over $575 million for the 24-25 non-operating budget. I will now review the non-operating revenues, as Todd has already covered the spending plan or the appropriation side of the non-operating budget. The first line is the pass-through portion of the air toxics fees collected by the district on behalf of the state, and then we send those fees to the state annually. This is estimated at $117,000 next fiscal year. The DMV surcharge fees are expected to be $48.7 million. These funds are used for a variety of district emission reduction incentives, such as the district's public benefit grant programs, the Tune In, Tune Up program, truck replacement, ag equipment replacement, and the technology advancement program. The district's revenue for Carl Moyer program is estimated at $19 million. The indirect source review and voluntary emission reduction agreement mitigation fees are estimated to be $15 million. These fees are provided by project proponents who ask the district for assistance with mitigating air quality impacts for either the district's indirect source review rule or for CEQA purposes. The district will receive about $91 million in federal funded EPA DARA, targeted airshed, and other emission reduction programs, which were awarded to the district for the replacement of residential wood burning devices, ag tractors, heavy duty trucks, low dust nut harvesting equipment, and technology advancement projects. The non-operating interest is estimated to be about $15.3 million. This is the interest earned on the state and federal funds and varies depending on the balance and timing of when these funds are received and spent. These funds are spent on emission reduction projects in accordance with each program's requirements and guidelines. So basically the interest follows the principal. As mentioned earlier, $5.25 million of operating funds are transferred to the non-operating budget to be spent on emission reduction projects, and that's reflected here. The California Energy Commission funding is expected to be $4.1 million. These funds will be used for emission reduction projects with grant partners for zero emission truck and infrastructure. You see two lines for admin revenue listed here. One is the administrative fees received from state and federal government to fund administrative costs of grant incentive programs. These funds may apply to more than 1 year, so the unused portion is accounted for in reserve accounts. We anticipate receiving about $7.7 million in new admin fees revenue. The admin fees are then earned when the district spends time and resources on administration of these programs. We anticipate earning about $10 million in admin fees in the recommended fiscal year 25-24 budget. That will be transferred from the admin fee reserves into the district's general fund. Based on already approved state allocations, we expect to receive over $145 million from CARB cap and trade revenues. These grants will be used for replacement of heavy and light duty vehicles, truck and ag equipment replacement, and the purchasing of electric buses. Moving on to the last slide here. The recommended budget is balanced with adequate reserves and contingencies as listed here. These reserves are listed at the bottom of the first page of your handouts. Based on the board's approved policy of funding the general reserve at 20% of the district's operating appropriation, this reserve is set at $14.8 million in the next fiscal year. To provide necessary funding for future replacement of the district's computer and VTC equipment, the district has been setting aside funding in a designated reserve for future replacement. We are proposing no change in this reserve for next fiscal year. Similarly, the district's building improvement reserve is for future projects such as the installation of solar panels in the central region office here at the district. We are proposing no change in this reserve as well for next year. To provide the necessary funding for future replacement of the district's state-of-the-art modeling center, which is critical to support the Valley's Clean Air Act attainment efforts, the district has been setting aside funding in a designated reserve. We are also not proposing any change to this reserve at this time. The district is proposing to add $75,000 to the monitoring equipment reserve to continue to support the maintenance and enhancements of monitoring stations around the Valley in order to provide accurate and real-time air quality data to Valley residents and businesses. Your governing board has also established a pension stabilization reserve fund, and following your board established policy, the recommended budget includes setting aside the required amount of $920,000, bringing the total reserve up to $7.3 million. And as in past years, in addition to the above mentioned reserve, this budget contains $850,000 appropriation for contingency. In the event that the district needs to use the contingency funds or any of the reserves mentioned here, your board will need to amend the budget. So we basically come back to the board for that budget amendment to move these funds to the appropriate budgetary amount in the operating budget. So at this time, this concludes my presentation. I'll now turn it back over to Samir for his final comments.
Thank you, Morgan. I just wanted to express gratitude again to the subcommittee, to the entire board for all of your leadership over the years and pulling together the principles that went behind developing this budget. As you can tell, it's really just a point in time on this ongoing journey of cleaning up the Valley's air. Also want to thank the staff, the team that presented this morning, but also the teams behind them that also did a lot of hard work to pull together the budget I think once again, this year, a good budget, balanced, and will accomplish much in the coming year. So with that, Mr. Chair, turn it back to you for any questions as well as taking public comment.
Very good. Thank you so much for all that information. So what I think is interesting is, we don't want to get off track and talk about the state budget or the federal budget because it's continually changing. So it's not worth, it wouldn't be overstating that that's really important to the one side of our budget, not so much the operations side. But it's unsettled at this point. So going there really doesn't add anything. But I think it's very thorough. I would like to ask any of the members who are on the ad hoc budget committee if they have any comments or any thoughts that they would like to share from their time listening to this budget, especially first timers, if anyone's there. Okay, seeing nothing. All right, if there are no questions, so I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. We're going to go out to the public hearing.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I may.
Okay, I see you, Vice Chairman.
I just want to thank the staff for making this process so easy and for us to understand and to digest. Not often, as we sit on various boards and committees, is this process made easy. But your visuals and the layout of the budget and what we're able to see, what is projected for the future is very simplified. And certainly, there are questions that could be asked, but I just want to thank you for making it easier for me to understand and to earmark certain things in the budget that are important for our community, as far as our municipalities, anybody that needs to apply for funds. So thank you so much for all the effort. It takes a lot of time to put this all together, and I really appreciate the hard work you've all done.
Thank you for your comments. Dr. Sheriff?
Thank you. I certainly thanks to the staff. I had a very good presentation. Love seeing the Brain Trust here and the passing of the baton. A good presentation, helping understand where the money's coming from and where the money is going, and really appreciate that. I'd also note, I think it's important in the budget, I think does a good job of highlighting public health is the goal and the budget is the means, and that it keeps public health in front, which is great. I do have one question or thought about presentation, and maybe for the June presentation. I would find it helpful for the money amounts that we're investing in incentives. What's the emissions payoff? So as well as the money, okay, and what's the emissions payoff? And I don't think it's good. I wouldn't expect that the place we're going to debate the value, in quotes, because we understand lots of values go into deciding where the incentive money is going to be spent. Sometimes we have more say and less say. But I think it is helpful, particularly in view of, as our chair commented, budget uncertainty. It helps us think about what ifs. Where might we be setting priorities in the future if we have to be making those kinds of adjustments? So I would appreciate seeing, and I think it would be helpful for the public too, because these are big numbers. This isn't just millions of dollars. Wow. $1.2 billion, $1.3 billion over the last 2 years invested in the Valley, invested in public health in the Valley. So I think it would be helpful for the public to see more clearly where some of that benefit lies. It's not just money, it's the emission reductions, and that we can see how those would affect Valley health. I have 1,000 other questions, but I want to let other people have a chance to ask their questions and comments and hear from the public too.
Very much. Dr. Pacheco Warner.
Thanks. I just wanted to say that I've seen over the years the investment pay off on the community outreach. So many more people are now knowing about things, and it's really paying off. I have a quick question about the monitoring equipment reserve and how that plays into. Is that the only place in which you're drawing from for monitoring equipment updates, or is there like another fund where that's coming from?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I could just respond really quickly to that. So yeah, and feel free to add more detail to it, but just at a high level, yeah, there are certain levels of equipment, including the refinery air monitoring equipment, where we set some funding in reserve, and then every so often we'll have to go back and basically upgrade that equipment at the end of useful life. But we do make appropriations in the budget as well on an ongoing basis to replace equipment through our regulatory network, and so you'll find that in some of the asset accounts, and we can have I can share more information with you on that based on specifically where you're looking. But so basically it's not the only it's not the only place in the budget for making those types of investments. Yeah.
Okay, great. Because I just was going to ask in terms of some of the emerging things that have happened over the last year where you've needed to take out monitoring, particularly the mobile monitoring. I just wanted to make sure we're accounting and sort of beefing that up as necessary. And I am scheduled to have a talk with EPA on some of the stuff that's been happening to get some support there.
Yeah, and we do look for those opportunities, and we're actually looking for funding opportunities too. We're actually putting in applications. There's newer funding sources related to monitoring. We're seeking those funds too, and as we just don't have those awarded, and once we hopefully receive some of those awards, those also can come back to the board for integrating, as updates to the budget. So they're definitely interested in looking at new technology, and there's places for that in the budget.
Thank you. That's all. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Member Mendez?
Yeah, this is just kind of a cleanup deal. Now, we'll hear this comes back up in June, but it's usually on consent, correct?
Yeah, so
Right.
I was going to respond to that. Yeah, so
Right.
it's not usually
Or
on.
we can pull it off in
It's not
white
usually,
paint
yeah, if I
dry
could clarify
again.
that. It's not usually on consent, so we're ready to actually present the board or the budget
Right.
in June, but because of the lengthy presentation, we typically don't actually fully present that budget again in June. And then I think to Dr. Sheriff's suggestion, due to timing, I think we can look at that as kind of an ongoing suggestion, but also within the timing that we have now, between now and the June meeting, there probably is something we could do in the budget document. It may not be quite
Exactly.
but I think we can make some. We can try to hit the spirit of what you're talking about. Between now and the June meeting, and then I think on an ongoing basis we can have that conversation about continuing to
Right.
add
It would
information.
become an addition to the budget. It's just like an appendix or something.
Yeah, or just a bit. We have a chapter in the budget called the incentive spending plan, and I think
Right.
in that chapter we can see if there's opportunities for adding more information in line with
Because it is, always, I think I've been on the committee 2 or 3 times over the years, but this is always, I always refer to it as watching paint dry. But the thing is, you end up with a very nice painting, a Rembrandt, not a abstract painting. So, it's very well presented and very clear.
And I appreciate the spirit of our core value of continuous improvement. You've continued to improve the analogy that you developed, and I really appreciate that. That's very consistent with that core value.
Okay. Mayor Preciado?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The question that I have is regarding locomotives. I noticed a little over $2 million. So what are the needs for the locomotive industry? To me, it seems like, there can be more money also invested there.
Yeah, through the chair, I can just a quick response to Mayor Preciado's question around locomotives. It's a great question. And what we're seeing with locomotives is that using state funding sources is becoming increasingly difficult to fund locomotives. There's an existing regulation that is now in the midst of being implemented. We're working with CARB to kind of examine the role of incentives kind of in the context of that regulation with respect to state funding sources. But on the positive side of things, we are seeing that some of the new federal funds, there's some that are specific to kind of port-related activity, some that are specific to rail infrastructure and locomotives. We're actually looking at those very closely right now and are in the process of pulling together what could be some very significant funds in terms of addressing locomotive emissions. They're not awarded at this point, and so those are the types of funds that as we compete for those funds, as you've seen, when we receive those funds, we have to bring those back to the board and update the budget to reflect those. And so I would anticipate, and we are very competitive in those various programs, I would anticipate that we're going to see more investment, significantly more investment on locomotives, but not through the traditional, kind of Moyer-based or state kind of based process. I think that's something that if we can find opportunities within those funds, we're certainly looking for those. But the federal funds there's actually 2 open opportunities right now. We're actually actively looking at those. And I do hope and anticipate that we'd be able to bring those back. We just can't put those into the budget until we've seen awards and so I do think that allocation is going to go up as we're able to successfully, hopefully, apply for those funds. And the last part is, I think that the opportunity is significant, and I think it is something that is absolutely a priority for us to try to figure out ways to reduce those emissions.
Thank you. Dr. Sheriffs?
Yeah, thank you. And speak again because it looks like the other board members have asked their questions. Want to comment on two questions, but want to comment. We do, the report also, I want to commend the highlighting of taking advantage of the nexus of climate and air quality opportunities that are out there, and that's highlighted in the budget. I certainly think the comments about wildfire, it's a broad approach we're taking, but it won't be a comprehensive approach unless we elevate the role of climate change in that and how we may be working on that as well. My questions, one was mentioned in the report, the increased collaboration with Valley Public Health agencies. And is that primarily through the CCPHC, or are there other avenues that we're doing that?
Yeah, I would say it's a combination of that's one great place to kind of bring an item of shared interest across the various health agencies. But we also have good relationships one-on-one with individual agencies as well that we take advantage of and can often utilize to, you may have noticed, for example, Fresno County Health Officers actually integrated into some of our outreach materials, and so we're continuing to kind of build those up, and especially coming, there were some high workloads kind of associated with the pandemic that we're really just front and center, and we're, I think, utilizing all the resources often within these various agencies that I think as we now move forward, and there's always a high workload everywhere, but I think there's a little bit more space to engage on shared issues, and that's something that's definitely a priority for us to keep looking for those opportunities.
And I just, I looked at the website for CCPHC. I'm not sure how often they're meeting, so I'm not sure what I want to volunteer myself for, but I'd be happy to be available to try to help. So, let me know when those meetings come up, and I'll try and
much appreciate that. We'll keep you posted.
The other question I had was page 25 of the presentation, supporting and working with state and local jurisdictions for Fresno and Bakersfield preparing the climate action plans. Could you say a little bit more about what's involved in that? 25.
Yeah, I'll give you a little quick overview of that through the chair again, just a quick response. So this was quite a large funding opportunity under the Inflation Reduction Act. It's run through EPA and involved, the first step involved supporting local jurisdictions in taking advantage of the first kind of tranche of funding, which is related to developing what were called PCAPs, Priority Climate Action Plans. And so there were 2 jurisdictions within the Valley who by formula and by size of jurisdiction under the EPA guidelines basically qualify to take advantage of those funds. So we, from an early stage, engaged with them and just made sure that they were aware of the opportunity and that, that we were basically part of the small group that supported moving forward with that, because those PCAPs, as they were called, led to then an opening of an opportunity to seek implementation funding. So basically a jurisdiction had to develop a priority climate action plan in order for there to then be eligible projects funded under said plan. And so we supported, so Fresno and Bakersfield did put together PCAPs, and we now are in the process of supporting, and so there was actually an application deadline for the implementation grants as well. We put in a substantial, about a $200 million climate smart agriculture project application under the state's plan, as well as supported by the local plans. And so that project application would support, if funded, would support equipment transitions, alternatives to open burning, and infrastructure transitions. But there are other projects as well in the Valley under these priority plans that we have also supported. So that that's sort of the combination of different roles that we played, and there's no awards yet announced under the program. We think soon there will be some, just because the funding itself is under pretty strict time frames, and it was very fast moving, and it was quite an effort just to make sure that we didn't miss out on the opportunity to actually do something with these funds.
I see no more questions, so we're going to go back to the public hearing and go out to the public for comment.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public in Bakersfield that would like to comment?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Are there any public comments out of Modesto office?
No public comments in Modesto.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public in Fresno that would like to comment? I do see one coming up to the podium.
Good morning, Manuel Cunha, DC Farmers League. First, I want to thank staff, Samir and the executive team. Very complicated process. In an hour and a half, 2 hours, you did the entire Clean Air Act and all of the 7 different SIPs that you have submitted for this air district to the ARB and the EPA. So great job. First thing is I want to acknowledge the board over the past years in their efforts supporting agriculture. I want to thank the California Resources Board Study Agency under Jan Sharpless way back in 91, 92 of encouraging that science is the key. Research is the key to know what to regulate versus people talking and just giving a bunch of things like putting a bag on a cow to collect the manure when it's ready to drop it. So we catch the ammonia, we catch the emissions, real and true facts that EPA had in 91, 92. So we've come a long way from people making absurd comments to real research to resolve the problem. As you can see behind me, that chart really says the answer of what this district has done with the funds, the incentives. The greatest thing is the collaboration. And again, I want to thank the entire staff at the Air District for working with all of our farmers, growers, ranchers, dairymen, people working in the hills, cattle people, and so on. Again, thank you, Samir, for all of that and your entire staff and team and the board. I also want to acknowledge that the $575 million does not include the USDA funds on top of this, which is somewhere around $300 million by USDA in 2008, and the $300 million so by the industry. So there's another $600 million to deal with farm tractors, to deal with the CMPs, the conservation management practices, all of those great things. One thing I would like to ask, and I know that Ryan and Shiraz and Todd and everybody else is working on trying to put together a meeting on the burn situation because the governor's budget has removed all the support. And yet we went into this a year and a half, 2 years ago, hoping that we would have incentives to help us continue. Because it's not just a 1-2 year thing and then no more help. It can't happen because we're taxing with a lot of things called SGMA, et cetera, market demands on our crops. And the walnut industry's in the tank for the last 2 years. The price has been a disaster. So making sure, but my comment is, maybe Samir, I know that we've talked about this. We're pulling together a burn meeting with the chippers and grinders. We have some grinders that we had people that pushed, piled, and burned for years, and they've done a tremendous job for our farmers. Those folks didn't have grinders, okay? They were just push, pile, and burn, and then continue the piles. And then now we have a few of those growers or chipper type guys that need help in purchasing a new chipper grinder because they don't have any old ones. We had to turn in one and et cetera. So maybe we can look at that out of the funding that we have for ag in the burning of 24-25 year, then maybe we can allocate maybe $2 million to help first-time folks that have actually been pushing and piling and land leveling for years, not somebody new, but somebody who's been existing. So I don't know if I need to bring that forward or if you will allow the staff as a board to have that flexibility of that 40 million or whatever it is for ag burn, that we can still use it to help some of
Thank
our.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Are there any other members of the public in Fresno that would like to make a comment? Seeing none, we do have one online comment. Connie Young.
Welcome, Connie.
Hi, good morning. This is Connie Young, Fresno County resident, retired registered nurse, and volunteer with Citizens Climate Lobby, also known as CCL. As a founding board member of a very small nonprofit with a budget of about $10,000. Wow, I'm really impressed at what you are doing with this huge sum of money and how well you are administering it and overseeing it. So thank you for that. And of course, for all the good work that you're doing to clean up our air. I'll be brief. I just want to second what Dr. Sheriff said about the inclusion of looking at the nexus between climate change and air quality, air pollution. So very important. And also the need to acknowledge climate change as one of the causes of these extreme wildfires that we're having. So yes, thank you, Dr. Sheriffs, for that. And I second that wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could,
Yeah, go ahead.
I think, was that the last online comment, Katrina?
Yes, no further.
Yeah, I just wanted to
online
respond really quickly to Manuel Cunha's suggestion, and we do plan on circling, with a number of stakeholders on sort of where we are today with the phase out, and try to find opportunities for supporting that phase out. On the specific idea that he had, definitely want to commit to looking for funding opportunities for that. Part of the difficulty with that issue is that the funding streams that we do have, for example, the 40 million that he had mentioned, there are very specific requirements that are associated with these different funds as to what you can and can't fund, and kind of growing that fleet, is something that we definitely want to very carefully do. We had one opportunity for that with the state funding that we received. We've exhausted that funding already, and so now the question is, can we figure out a way to maybe within that federal award, for example, that the work plan that we developed, if we were to, under the climate pollution reduction grant, actually the big part of that application dealt with alternatives to open burning, and some of that could be fleet expansion on the service side. So I think we definitely want to commit to looking at this issue with Mr. Cunha and just seeing if there's a way to try to support, even more options basically available for growers to deal with the challenge, which is significant. I want to acknowledge that. So just want to respond to that, Mr. Chair.
Good. And since there is no more comment, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing on this item and remind everyone, again, it's been said a couple of times, but June 20th is the adoption date And we do still have the ability at that point to pull it off and have a discussion on it if anyone sees fit. And so we'll move on to item 5, which is the public comment period. It's time made available for comments from the public on matters within the board's jurisdiction that are not on today's agenda. You will also be limited to 3 minutes in your public comment, and we can't take any action on any item that is not on the posted agenda. So to the clerk.
Thank you. Are there any public comments in Bakersfield?
No public comment in Bakersfield?
Thank you. Any public comments in Modesto?
No public comments in Modesto.
Thank you. Any members of the public in Fresno that would like to comment? Seeing none, there is one online. That is Connie Young.
Welcome back, Connie.
Thank you. Yes, I'm back. So for those of you who watch Sesame Street with your children, or perhaps watched it when you were a child, you may recall that some of the programs were brought to you by a letter or a number. With that in mind, my comment today is brought to you by the words quiet, clean, quick, and convenient. I'd like to talk about electric vehicles of several types and my appreciation for the many incentives and resources you offer Valley residents to encourage them to go electric. I'm pleased to report that I'm now the new owner of a previously owned all-electric Chevy Bolt, and that's with a B as in Buddy, not a V as in Vito. My new to me Bolt EV is quiet, clean, quick, and convenient. It's so quiet that I've almost stepped out of it while it was still running. Needless to say, an alarm notified me of my error before I went too far. Not only is it quiet, but it's clean. It feels so good to know that my car isn't spewing toxic pollution that fouls our air and is overheating our planet. In addition to being quiet and clean, it is super quick. I'm no speed demon, but even I can appreciate how quickly the car responds when I press on the accelerator. Last but not least, it's convenient. I love being able to charge in my garage just using a standard 120 volt outlet. No more waiting in long gas lines for me. Speaking of electric vehicles, perhaps you've heard that Fresno is the very first place in the entire nation where the FAA has allowed an all-electric airplane to be used for flight training hours. The low operating cost of about $5 per hour for an electric plane compared to almost $40 an hour for a conventional plane will help make becoming a pilot more achievable for young people, especially those from disadvantaged communities. This is critical since the aviation industry projects a worldwide need for 800,000 new pilots by 2040. In the future, we'll see clean electric aircraft providing essential air service to communities across California. Last but not least, yesterday I rode in the mayor's bike ride in downtown Fresno. And what do you think Mayor Dyer was riding? You guessed it, an electric bike. Thanks to your incentives, hopefully more and more Valley residents will be able to use transportation that is quiet, clean, quick, and convenient. That will be good for the Valley and good for our air. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Connie.
No further online comments.
Okay, so we're going to close the public comment period. Any other business for the good of the order from any board members? And I will hesitate here for a few seconds. And seeing none, this meeting, oh, we do have some.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to let everybody know, Vito said he enjoys Modesto a lot more than Fresno. That's it.
Hey, I see none of you guys have ties on.
And I love your color scheme.
Yeah.
You're gonna miss out on a good lunch.
That's it. Well, thank you all again for making time on your Thursday. And this meeting is adjourned at 11:35. Thank you.
We miss you, Vito.
Thank you. I miss you guys.